A motion by Helmut.
Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kinney.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township. You know, those government people, they make laws and regulations that affect you out there.
That's right, Elgin. And whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Addison Township, or Oxford Township, these are the people that you went and elected. And the commissions and the committees that make decisions that would have directly affected you, and probably did anyhow,
Right.
whether you went to that meeting or not. So the result could be a taxing situation.
Right, and I would expect that a lot of people would attend these meetings, but very few actually do. And like he says, things will happen. It's called humor. And if you look at these meetings as we do, we find lots of humor, don't we?
Yes, and its little rhyming cousin called rumor.
And one of these will get you one or the other, but normally the rumors are spread by, you know.
Who? What?
Yeah, this guy is always hiding behind the bushes. But let's talk about a few meetings that occurred recently. Actually, this one goes back a little ways. It's a Village of ZBA meeting that occurred on May 7th. Another one is Oxford Village Council meeting that was May 8th. And then we're going to talk about the Pollyann Trail meeting that they just had yesterday prior to this broadcast.
Is that why you disappeared?
That's why it disappeared.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the Village ZBA meeting because that was a rather short one. Joe Joe Bullen is normally the chair, has done a great job. And by the way, everybody in this village and township pretty much know Joe. Used to be the village manager at one time of Oxford.
No
He has-
relation to Jeff.
Right. He has served on numerous. Jeff, by the way, is the owner of
Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons, right down the street here, but not related. But anyway, anybody that knows Joe Bullen knows that he was very active in sports. Basketball, was a coach for a number of years. And anyway, really a great guy. Related to Susan McCullough, who was also
Oh,
assistant clerk.
deputy clerk.
Deputy clerk is what it's called. That's her title.
Yes.
Right. And anyway, I want to just say that Joe did not attend this meeting. Rose Bema was there. I was there. Of course, I serve on that board for the village. Marilyn Benner was on the board, and Dave Bailey and Scott James all serve on this board. The recorder was Drew Benson, and he's the intern, you know, for the village. Right?
Okay.
And so the first thing that they did is they were looking to nominate people for the board because it was time to do that. And,
Oh.
and Joe Bullen had indicated that he didn't have an interest in running again or being nominated again, you know, for the
These
president.
are for the various officers of
Right,
the board. Okay.
Of the board for the ZBA. So that being said, Joe is out of the contention. What was nominated, Rose Bema was nominated as the chair and put in that position. Elgin Nichols would be the vice chair.
Two
And
people that have had a long experience in government officials.
One of us longer than the
business.
other, that would be Rose. She's
Oh,
been
well.
around for a long time.
She knows the ins and outs of the village of
Yeah,
Oxford.
I think she was a treasurer once for the village, wasn't she?
Something like that, yes.
Okay, or assistant
She
clerk
knows
or
her
something
stuff.
along that line, but
She
has
knows
served
her
on
stuff.
multiple boards.
Yes, she
Yep,
does.
Right. What kind of stuff does she know?
More than you.
Probably true. But anyway, we were chosen, you know, for those positions. And for secretary, Marilyn Benner agreed to
Okay.
pick up that responsibility. And interesting enough, Marilyn, of course, is a secretary for the school system over here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
For Oxford High School. So she's going to do a great job. And I've known Marilyn for a while and her husband before. Nice people. Of course, her husband passed away, which unfortunately was a really sharp guy. Marilyn is too, so I think you got a pretty good board there. Public hearing, Dennis Green from 145 South Washington, a property that he owned there, and it's an odd piece of property. You and I discussed this off air at one time. And
That's on the west side.
It's on the west side, actually the southwest side. He actually owns the heating and plumbing business
Okay.
down there on the right-hand side, which would be the west side.
And
of
obviously
Washington.
he had something to request.
He did. What he wanted to do is access the pie-shaped property that he had from the rear side of Mechanic Street and be able to provide a driveway on
Oh.
that end. unfortunately, there were a number of issues involved. One is it was against the ordinance. Ordinance requires 60 feet. He only had roughly about 32, 33 feet that he could work with. So that's why he was there to get a variance. There's also some conjecture that he wanted to split the property, the front side of the property being commercial, the back side of the property would be residential, which actually in reality that's what it is anyway. So, but to split it, you need access to the property.
So is it a single business with nothing else, or is there an apartment or something attached to it, or
there's
what?
no apartments back there, but he is talking about putting commercial properties on the front along M24. And he has petitioned MDOT in order to give him another cut in order to get to the back of the property, but they're kind of not interested in doing that. If you know anything about MDOT, he has 2 cuts there now, so to give him a 3rd cut, they really frown on that.
Well, and that MDOT train is coming down the road, so
Yes, it is.
maybe they're a little reluctant to make any promises right now.
Well, everybody knows that M24 is really congested. No matter what time of the day that you go on M24, you can hardly get out on the streets. So in order to put another cut there where people are going to exit and enter, not a good idea from MDOT's standpoint. So it's not very clear that he would ever get a cut, additional cut. So that's why he was looking for this cut on Mechanic Street. Unfortunately, there is a school at the end of that driveway where he intended to provide access. And also residents complained about the congestion of traffic because of ball games and so forth that the kids have, at the school. So
Not to mention the people on 24 scooting around to get rid of the congestion.
yes, right, and that happens too. And we all know the shortcuts out there, folks. And this would have been one of those shortcuts, of course. But anyway, so that posed a real concern, along with an estimate of 20 to 25 homes they intended to build in that area.
Oh.
There's no way that it could accomplish that number of homes. A single home, it could have accomplished it quite well because a single driveway wouldn't have a major amount of traffic coming from there. But if you're looking to expand the area, that was a major concern that the Zoning Board of Appeals had in looking at this whole issue. And unfortunately for this gentleman, apparently this property was also turned down by a previous zoning board.
Oh, one strike.
Right, but the consulting firm did not have that information available for the Zoning Board of Appeals to review. But it was a statement that was made. Another statement was made that the gentleman, when he purchased the property, which his name is Dennis Green, knew that the property did not have access in the back. To purchase a piece of property knowingly that there was an issue really puts a certain amount of,
Did he
responsibility on
already
his part.
purchase the property?
He had purchased the property knowing that it was landlocked. Now, he's not done yet because what happened in the end of this, of course, after total review, the Zoning Board of Appeals decided to stick with the ordinance and decline his application. But
This implies that the Planning Commission had denied him also.
that's true. Well, he never went before the Planning Commission.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he circumvented the Planning Commission, and he can do that according to state law. He could go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and get this enacted first, or at least decided upon.
Called an end run.
Yeah. Hey, we can finish this off when we come back, and we'll talk more about it briefly. Thank you. Welcome back to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Village ZBA meeting that was held on May 7th concerning a piece of property that was non-conforming. And you were bringing up some pretty good subjects off the air here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you did an end run around the Planning Commission, number one. But another thing is he got denied by either the Planning Commission or the ZBA at some point in time in the past, and no one seems to know when.
They don't know when or what the reasons were at that time. But,
They're scurrying for the records.
yeah. But actually, in defense of this gentleman, he is allowed to go to ZBA without going to Planning Commission through state regulation law. So he could do that. And I think his thinking was that if he could get the zoning board of appeals to go ahead and approve this, he then could take a site plan, which he has to provide for any, production that he's going to do for that property.
Well,
He has to make available to the planning commission.
are they the final arbiter of that decision, or do they still have to refer it to the council?
No. At this point, council has no control over ZBA.
Okay.
Zoning Board of Appeals makes a final decision, and that decision was made. However, there are other alternatives that this gentleman
Now you're
has.
starting to talk like a lawyer.
Yeah. So this gentleman, in his defense, he could purchase a piece of property on the road going in, where there is a number of homes in that area that he'd probably pick up for maybe $125,000, something along that line, and he would have access to that property, and he would be then conforming. So that's an option that he may be willing to look at down the line. Unfortunately, the Zoning Board of Appeals had to rule in this way in order to protect the ordinance in place and also the concerns of the residents within that area.
Not to mention a precedent which had already been set.
That's right. So that would take care of Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's talk about the Oxford Village Council, which occurred on May 8th. Sue Bassard is chair. Eric Dolan sits on that board as a vice chair. David Bailey is on that board, and he's, of course, served on several village commissions in the past. Maureen Helmuth serves on the board, and she has been a long-time member of the Village Council. And Joel Frost, who's the newest member, but is no first day at the ranch because he
Not his
served
first
as a
rodeo?
DDA. Yeah, he was the director of the Downtown Development Authority.
So he knows his way around Oxford.
Very competent, very smart fella. I've worked with him on M24 Task Force. Very knowledgeable and with Streetscape, and he has the connections. But anyway, they did the Pledge of Allegiance, went through the preliminaries. They had a public hearing for 2018-2019 budget, in which they called for a special budget meeting, a workshop down the line. And at this particular meeting, they allocated $71,358 roughly from a certain fund to be transferred into another fund. Okay?
That's pretty general.
Yeah, that's real general. And Rose Bemis said, I'm just curious. She says, what is the millage for the village? Millage for the village.
Ah,
That was
that's
good. She
pretty
did
good.
that, didn't
Yeah,
she? She did a good job. She rhymes things occasionally.
sound like a good slogan.
Right. And most people have served on these boards, and she's fairly new to a couple of these, is 10.62 is the village. And what's interesting enough, the village, you folks, you pay 10.62, plus you also pay
Township.
township tax. So it kind of adds up. You're probably paying the highest water bills probably within the country too. My comparison, of course, with water bills from where I came from, Bay County, was like $45 every 3 months. Big difference between $75 every month. So that
That's
gives you
true.
an idea.
Why is it so expensive?
That's a good question, but I suspect it has to do with the wells that they extract the water from
And they're
the
relatively,
purification
but
system.
an awful lot of these stuff we have now is fairly new, and are probably still trying to pay it off.
Right. And the good news is that you you do have the best water within the state, more than likely, the way it's been tested. So you're pretty safe, not like Flint, where you light up in the dark after you had a glass of water.
Yikes!
So that could be a bad problem. So anyway, what came up? Okay, Rose Bema, council should set aside money for roads, was her point. She was in the audience at the time and not sitting on the board. And she just said that a lot of the infrastructure, roads are kind of in dire need of being repaired. And when was the last time, that money was set aside for that? Well, according to Don Brantley, it was set aside roughly about 4 years ago. Even before that, year 2008.
When you say set aside, is that allocated
Allocated. Yep.
to Don
That's
Brantley?
another word.
To the Public Works Department?
Absolutely.
Go do your thing?
Go do your thing.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, the point was taken, and the village manager said, well, that's something that we certainly need to be looking at. And Rose said, well, I do know that your financial situation is improving. It's something that you folks should be looking at for the residents of this community. Good idea. Rose came up with a good one there. She needs to follow up on it, and I'm sure she will, knowing Rose. Eric Dolan said that village should do more for the residents. got his 2 cents worth in there. And he said that for one thing, he said there's not enough money being taken in for fines and fees. He said that needs to be looked at and readdressed.
Wow.
You're right. So Dolan, however, had kind of a quick confrontation with Mike Solwald. And because Mr. Dolan said he received a complaint from his subdivision, which would be Oxford Lakes, that there was an indication that there was a drug usage at the park, and that somebody called the police but never got response for 2 hours. And so the police chief took issue with that, and he made the point, well, do you know this for sure? Do you have the facts on it? And it should be substantiated, is what the chief said.
Well, right. There's probably
Right.
logs at the police station of any call that was made.
Right. And what happened here, though, it set off Dolan to the point where he said he would advise him to be cautious because he's a subordinate. Yeah. And
Really?
that he doesn't need to point out to him that he needs to substantiate anything.
Whoa.
So, yeah. So that was a quick flash in the pan. The chief said that he takes pride in his police force, and he will pursue this issue and find out why, if there was a 2-hour delay, in the response. If there is, he said he'll make it correct and get back to the board. Public comments, none. Consent agenda was approved and all that, and of course the minutes were approved, and bills for $62,998.19. New business, let me see, Joe Madure, village manager, request for administrative costs. He says that they're going to have to increase the trash pickup by 10 cents for their local residents and 33.54 cents for commercial.
Did they resolve some of the problems they had with the trash pickup with the new company?
Apparently they did, but apparently they hired new trucks and more people. Yes, sir, raised
That
the rate.
always works.
That should work. So anyway, they said, okay, fine, we need it, and so they're going to go forward. But anyway, that's some of the issues that came up with the village council, and we'll talk more when we come back right after this, folks.
You haven't gotten to the conflict between Joe and...
Nope, that's coming.
On Schooling Around, we don't just school around. We get with everyone from the superintendent to the kids to find out what's new in Oxford schools. Schooling Around, only on OCTV.
Here's one more issue. Welcome to Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
We are talking about the village council that went on, and one other issue I want to cover, and that is franchise fees. Terry Stiles brought an issue before the board
Of our station.
that franchise fees were getting 2.5% out of the 5% that's provided for franchise fees for charter.
That by comparison to Oxford Township, who gives 100%.
Right. It was pointed out by Bassardet that yes, but AT&T or PEG fees, you're getting full PEG fees, which is 2.5%, right?
Oh, they can't do anything about PEG fees.
No, it's legislated, and
It's mandatory.
yeah, it is. So anyway, Sue Bassardet, who's the chairperson, who was also a member of this communications board, said that she wants to keep the money in the village, not have OCTV have the fund for it, which is rather unique, I think, for somebody who sat on the board would make that position. Now, Eric Dolan, of course, he agreed with Sue Bassardet. So one thing led to another in the fact that right now it is as it is. 2.5% is what we receive rather than the full 5%. And as you pointed out, the township has been very protective of the station because they appreciate the information that you folks are getting out there from our TV station. So they will continue to support OCTV. Well, with that, we want to mention one more thing, that they had a Oxford Village workshop. Now I want to call the workshop that they had a work shed
Oh,
effect.
a work shed.
Yeah, it sounds humorous, and
Like the woodshed?
start out humorous. But what's interesting is we did not have cameras at the site when they did the workshop for budgets. But what occurred there through witnesses is that a confrontation occurred when the subject of OCTV funding came up, about charter franchise fees, that kind of thing. And it was between Eric Dolan, who's a village council member, and Joe Frost, who's also a village councilman. And Mr. Frost attempted to present the case and what he thought it would be a good idea for these funds to now be placed back with OCTV being years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it used to be, and until it was removed on a temporary basis.
They were in much worse financial condition
Sure.
back then, but they aren't now.
Right. Well, what occurred here is that, to make a summary here, Eric Dolan actually used the big F word, and I'm not talking about freight trains, in referring to Joe Frost's position on this. Not a good idea. I think a total disrespect,
Well,
to the point where I understand that Joe Frost was so upset he left the meeting at that point. And,
shouldn't go that way.
Yeah, I would hope that Joe Frost would not leave the council, because he brings some pretty good integrity and background experience to this board, which they dire need. Okay.
Not good when it goes that way.
Now, what I want to say is that whatever happened to the American values, a kinder, friendlier nation, I don't think that's occurring here, and just plain courtesy and respect for ideas of others.
Sounds like the meeting got out of control.
Right. This is no laughing matter, and no wonder the village council gets such low marks from village residents. Joe Frost was disgusted, and I don't blame him. He's trying to present a point, and he was shot down. It's happened before in village council meetings. I believe it is remiss in the fact that the chairperson that is to control a meeting did not control this meeting. And that was her responsibility to do this, did not. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Now, what was the option that Joe Frost would have had? His option is to request the chairman to put a stop to it when there is disrespect. I, for one, hope,
Or it should have been interceded at immediately by the chairman.
that's true. I, for one, hope that doesn't happen again. The council needs people like Joe Frost, who bring a wealth of experience and common sense to the village council.
Well said.
That's the end of my humor.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, another meeting that we want to
Moving
talk
on to
about.
lighter subjects.
Yeah, let's talk about the Pollyant Trail, which that just occurred. Pollyant Trail meeting was with Mike McDonald as the chairman, Curtis Wright, Donnie Steele serves on the board, and yours truly serves on that board as well. Bruce Pearson, Aaron Watley, and Kevin Green and Linda Moran. Kevin Green is the citizen rep, and actually not a voting member. And of course, the trail manager is not a voting member, but she has a lot to say. She's small but powerful. I'll tell
Yes.
you. She has accomplished a lot for the trail, I think. For you folks that enjoy the
I don't
trail.
think a lot of people appreciate what that manager does.
Right. For example, we had a big windstorm that we talked about, 70-mile-an-hour winds. Well, guess what that did to the trail in a lot of spots? It knocked over trees. under
Yeah,
the
hard
trail.
on bikes, hard on runners.
Right. And Kevin Green said that he inspected the trail right after the storm that went through. And he said that there was already crews out there that cleaned it up.
Excellent.
So good job. So anyway, other things that occurred here, of course, is that consent agenda was approved. There's a problem, a quick problem with the way the minutes were put together, and I'm the guy who does the minutes. And the problem with the minutes were that a couple of names were misspelled. So that was corrected. And I actually review this with Curtis Wright usually before I submit it. And Curtis did send me information on changes the day before the meeting, which was kind of late in the day, and I chastised him and coated him with tar and beat him. But he said, I'm only doing this, for free. I said, okay, I understand it then. Anyway, Curtis is a great guy, very articulate in what he does. And he's, of course, with the township as well. He's a township clerk.
He used to be a township supervisor.
He used to be a supervisor, and I told you that, and you were shocked, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, he's been around for a long time. He was born and raised pretty much in this area, so he knows just about everybody. And so
Does a great job.
He does do a great job. And the people, I want to say at the township level, if you've ever watched any of our meetings, which are broadcast here on OCTV, you can check it out on occtv.org, and you'll see the way it's handled. Very smooth in advance. It's not going to take all night. It goes through rather quickly because of the preparation that's made by the members that sit on this board.
And Bill Dunn, Bill Dunn wouldn't get anything get out of control.
No, Bill Dunn does a great job of leadership of that group. And if there were such an issue such as occurred on the village council, trust me, there would be smoke, flames, and you name it. It would be corrected in a heartbeat. No question about that in my mind's eye. But let's get back to the Pollyant Trail. Paid the bills in the amount of $4,293.23. Get your checkbook out. You could do that. Okay. I see the 23 cents being written down for sure.
Yeah, how
But
deep
maybe-
do you think my pockets are?
How deep are they?
Not too.
We could check it out later. Turn them upside down and shake the change out. That's about what we get. Speaking of change, what's going on in the change in terms of meetings that's coming
Well,
up?
we do have a couple of meetings up on 6/4 at 7 o'clock, the Zoning Board of Appeals in Oxford, and on 6/5, the following day, the Village of Oxford Planning Commission at 7 o'clock. More grist for your mill.
It is. And that's all you have?
Hey, it's the end of the month.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Well, this is Minutes by Minute. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
Catch you next time right here. Good job.